Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Ancient Gear Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for January 2020. A lot of you have been requesting an update to the Ancient Gear deck. It's a really fun deck. For those of you who are a fan of Crowler from the Yu-Gi-Oh GX anime, this was the main deck that he focused on with a bunch of giant machine monsters. It was also a heavy focus of the Arc V or Arc 5 anime, where they were the main cards used by the Fusion Academy, where they was basically the villains of the series, using fusion and cards related to Ancient Gear Golems. And very fun deck overall. The whole point of the deck to fusion out big Ancient Gear monsters, get out Ancient Gear Golem, get all the different boss monsters for the deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for the Ancient Gear monsters, I run 2 Ancient Gear Golem. I decided only 2 Ancient Gear Golems. It's basically just if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards until the end of damage step. So with a 3000 attack, 3000 defense monster, it cannot be special summoned, but you still have options to get this card out. A very, very useful card that also needed for a good amount of the fusions in the deck as well. I only run the 2 though. It's very easy to search out this card, and I felt that's the only number of cards you need for the deck otherwise. I do run 1 Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound. With this one, cannot be special summoned. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage up to twice per turn. When this attacking card destroys a monster by battle, you can discard 1 machine monster. This card can attack again in a row. If this card in the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand. And if you do, add 1 other Ancient Gear monster from your graveyard to your hand. So just search effects, but the pressure with this card and its attack is the main reason why I use it in the deck as well. If you're not a fan of Ultimate Pound, you can try putting in a 3rd copy of Ancient Gear Golem into the deck just to fill out that spot. But at that point, it just becomes player preference when they want to use that play or not. One of the true scary monsters in the deck is Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. If this card was tribute summoned by tributing an Ancient Gear monster, attacks a defense monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. And if this card was tribute summoned by tributing a gadget monster, it can make a 2nd attack during each battle phase. If this card attacks, your opponent's spell and traps and monster effects cannot be activated until the end of damage step. At the end of damage step of this card attack, you can destroy 1 spell or trap card on the field. So using cards like Gear Town, probably the easiest way to special summon this card out. Also, with this card giving the tribute for some of your other ones, but using this for Reactor Dragon is your best way to get this card on the field, and then just having that pressure to destroy your opponent's spell and traps, and then also just make sure that they can't activate anything when it attacks, having another 3000 attack, 3000 defense monster, and not even getting to the fusion parts of the deck just makes it all the more scary and that much more difficult for your opponent to get over this monster, along with Ancient Gear Golem as well. For some of the other cards, I run 3 Ancient Gear Wyvern. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Gear Wyvern. Also, you cannot set cards for the rest of this turn. You can only use this effect of Ancient Gear Wyvern once per turn. If this card attacks, your opponent's monsters cannot activate their effects until end of damage step. So very, very useful for the monster effect part of the card. But the search definitely does combo with some other cards, like Ancient Gear Box, which we'll get to in just a bit. But also, just having that pressure to search for any of the Ancient Gear cards gives you access to a lot of your spells as well, which is a very important part of the deck. Even going for your fusion card being searchable with Ancient Gear Wyvern makes it a 3 of, because most of the time it's one of your go-to normal summon cards in the deck as well. And I also run 3 Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. With this one, if this card is normal summon, inflict 600 damage to your opponent. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell, traps until the end of damage step. And once per turn, you can fusion summon 1 Ancient Gear fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. So it's another option for fusion summoning. You have a couple other cards in the deck, including Ancient Gear Fusion and some other fusion cards that help with fusion summoning a monster out. But Hunting Hound, along with the Burn, which can definitely help if you're going for time and both your opponents have you and your opponent have the same life points, just to get that little extra amount. But the fusion play is the main reason I use this card, since it also says hand or field. So as many resources as you have in your hand, you can use with Ancient Gear Hunting Town to fusion summon out a monster onto the field. And I also run 3 Ancient Gear Frame. You can discard 1 card to add 1 Ancient Gear Golem or 1 spell or trap that specifically lists the card Ancient Gear Golem and its text from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Ancient Gear Frame once per turn. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell or traps until the end of damage step. And if this face-up card on the field leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon up to 3 Ancient Gear Golem and or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound from your hand, ignoring the summoning condition. So the search effect and the fact that it ignores the summoning condition to get out these monsters is your best way to go about summoning some of your big boss monsters in the deck for sure. The discard effect can also help to set up some other cards in your graveyard like Ancient Gear Catapult if you have it in your hand and you're going for the banish effect. Along with this, Hunting Hound and Wyvern, you have plenty of normal summon options that'll always have a play to go for as well for these cards, and running the numbers we do makes it so you have a very good chance of also always opening up at least one of these cards to have your normal summon taken care of in the deck as well. Going off of the Wyvern play for the search, I run the 2 Ancient Gear box. If this card is added from the deck or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, you can add 1 Earth Machine type monster with 500 attack and or defense from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Gear box. You can only use this effect of Ancient Gear box once per turn. Just having the option for the Earth Machine type monster with 500 attack and or defense from your deck to your hand just gives you more of the search options for the deck overall. Very, very useful for the search plays that you can do with this one. For the Earth Machine monster, for that, except the Ancient Gear box, very, very strong, especially to add cards like Ancient Gear Frame, since it has 500 attack and or defense being the defense spot for this card. So remember that for the search that you're going for, it's usually the search target you'll go for, since it'll give you an additional Ancient Gear monster to add to your hand. And to finish off the monsters, I just have the 2 Ash Blossom. I was kind of going for the 40 card spot on the deck. If you want to add a 3rd Ash Blossom, I'll show what card you could potentially take out for it, or at least adjust your numbers for this spot as well. And then that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. For the spells, I run 3 Gear Town. This field spell, very, very important. In the deck, both players contribute summon Ancient Gear monsters with 1 less tribute than required. And when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So, most of the time I like to go for the boss monster, which is Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. Just getting out an easy boss monster out of the field. But if you want to go for some of your other fusion plays, you can also go for cards like Ancient Gear Wyvern, which will get the search since it also says when it's normal or special summon, or just having more options for, cards with Ancient Gear Frame. For the discard, you have plenty of special summon targets to go with Gear Town, and just have other cards in your deck as well that you can use to destroy this card and get the special summon. And if you have another monster on the field and you have Ancient Gear Golem or Ultimate Pound in your hand, you can go for the easy tribute as well with your deck. And I also run 3 Ancient Gear Catapult. I really do love this card with the deck. While you control no monsters, target 1 face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning condition, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do special summon 1 Gear Token Machine, you can only use 1 Ancient Gear Catapult effect per turn, and only once that turn. So the obvious destruction is most of the time for the Gear Town, being able to destroy it with this card to special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck, and then also using Gear Town once it's destroyed. So very, very useful to run 3 Ancient Gear Catapult. I also run Foolish Burial Goods. We'll get to that with the generic spells in the deck to send this and set up the banish for the token when you can with this card, also having the options for those effects when you need it, depending on which ones you want to go for. And I also I have the 2 Ancient Gear Fortress. I've been debating bumping this card up to 3. If I were to probably take out maybe 1 of the Ash Blossom spots, it's debatable with this spot if what you want to take out, or you can try one of the final spell spots for this one also. It all depends, player preference there. But with Ancient Gear Fortress, during the turn, they were normal or special summon. Your opponent cannot target Ancient Gear monsters you control with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot activate card effects in response to the activation of Ancient Gear cards and effects. And if this card is destroyed in the spell and trap card zone, you special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your hand or graveyard, and you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Ancient Gear monsters. But it's not really a limit at all with this deck, and this card is just a great extra protection card. Also, other potential pop targets, since you'll still get a special summon with this card, with cards like Ancient Gear Catapult as well. And I also run 2 Ancient Gear Fusion, just an easy card to fusion summon an Ancient Gear monster. And if you use Ancient Gear Golem or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound, you control its fusion material. You can also use monsters from your deck as material. I know it's kind of a pricey card at the moment if you don't have Ancient Gear Fusion, but you still want to go for the fusion play. You can try taking this card out and putting in polymerization. Like I said, if you don't have Ancient Gear Fusion, still a fusion play, just can't benefit as much from the use of monsters from the main deck. That's why this card's definitely better. But like I said, definitely for a more budget option if you're looking to build this deck, polymerization works just as well for this spot. And then for some of the other one-ups, I run 1 Power Bond, just another fusion option along with Hound and Ancient Gear Fusion, 1 Limiter Removal, 1 Monster Reborn, and 1 Terraforming. The Terraforming definitely being useful for searching out Gear Town. Same with Monster Reborn for easy special summon. If you wanted to adjust your numbers of Ancient Gear Fortress, you could take out the Limiter Removal. It's great for the pressure plays, but the fusions really do enough on their own as well. Power Bond I like also, but if you wanted to take it out for a 3rd Ash Blossom spot, that could be one of the cards you remove for that slot also. And I also run 2 Foolish Burial Goods. This is for the send setup for Ancient Gear Catapult, so you can get the banish effect when it's in the graveyard. And I also run 2 Twin Twister. This is to destroy your opponent's cards along with the possibility of destroying your Gear Town or your Ancient Gear Fortress to get the special summon effects for those as well. I've debated if I wanted to run Mystical Space Typhoon instead of this card. It's a valid option just because you don't have to discard and you'll still get the destruction and the special summon of one of your other cards. But Twin Twister can set up other cards like Ancient Gear Catapult in your graveyard also, which is why I like this option available. Plus other Ancient Gear monsters in your graveyard, which you can special summon back with cards like Monster Reborn also. And to finish off the spells, I run 3 Call by the Grave, just a staple for the deck, being able to stop your opponent because you do send some cards with cards like Ancient Gear Fusion or the special summon of them as well with Gear Town, so being able to stop cards like Ash Blossom, or if they use cards like Effect Veiler to stop your effects on the field, this card definitely does come in handy. But that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. For the fusion monsters, I run 2 Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. You need Ancient Gear Golem and 2 Ancient Gear monsters to summon this card. It must be fusion summon if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. If it attacks, your opponent can activate spell or traps until the end of damage step. And if this card is destroyed, you can target 1 Ancient Gear Golem in your graveyard, special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions. It has 4,400 attack and 3,400 defense. When you get this boss monster out, definitely difficult for your opponent to get around this card since it is unaffected by spell and traps, and also just being a powerhouse, being able to get another Ancient Gear Golem out into the field as well. One of the easier fusions to make is Ancient Gear Howitzer. It's also unaffected by other card effects, which is very useful as well. And you can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent during the main phase. You can only use this effect of Howitzer once per turn. And if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So having this as another card to go for, with just needing 2 Ancient Gear monsters, very, very easy setup for cards like Hunting Hound, since you usually have the one other Ancient Gear in the hand. Being unaffected by other effects, when your opponent destroys it, you'll get that special summon of your Ancient Gear monster also. And I also run 2 Ancient Gear Megaton Golem, just another boss monster to go for. If you only run the one Megaton Golem, you could take one out and put in a 3rd Howitzer spot, just being another easy fusion summon to go for. And also, one of the bigger boss monsters is Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, needing 4 Ancient Gear monsters to make it, but very easy to do with Ancient Gear Fusion. Must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. Unaffected by spell or trap effects, your opponent's monsters cannot activate their effects during the battle phase, and if this card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, and if it attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. This card can definitely win you games when you get it out, just being able to hit all those monsters for some pretty powerful damage, especially. Giving you all the different options for your fusions is also very important if you need a specific one for a specific play. For the only Exceed I run the deck, the 1 Gear Guardian X with the level 4s I run, just an easy overlay to search for a more important machine you may need for that play. And for the Link monsters, I run 1 Mrs. Radiant, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Barricade Board Blocker for the Gear Town, for the continuous or field spells from your graveyard, depending on what you need, back to your hand. Also 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and 1 Borreload Dragon to finish off the extra deck. But that is it for the deck profile. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Ancient Gears are definitely a fun deck. I want to thank my friend Anthony for letting me borrow his deck for the profile. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.